As your new wife, I am allowing your mother to live in my old apartment, my daughter-in-law announced at the wedding reception. I smiled. I appreciate it, but I am living quite happily on my own property. My son interrupted me immediately. Mom, I decided not to tell you earlier, but my in-laws and my sister-in-law are moving in there. I looked around the ballroom. Actually, they were nowhere to be seen. So I said, very loudly. That sentence hung in the air like glass about to shatter. All the guests turned their heads toward our table. The jazz band stopped playing. The waiters paused mid-step, and my son Lucas, my only son, looked at me with a mixture of shame and defiance that I had never seen in his eyes before. My name is Eleanor. I am 67 years old, and that night I was wearing my burgundy suit that I kept for special occasions. I had ironed every pleat with care. I tied my hair back in an elegant bun. I even wore the pearl earrings that my late husband Arthur gave me for our 20th anniversary. I wanted to look dignified for my son's wedding. I wanted him to be proud of me. How wrong I was. Harper, the bride, was still standing by the head table with her glass of champagne raised and that smile that I now recognize as pure calculation. She wore an ivory dress with beadwork that must have cost more than I earned in 6 months. Her family had organized everything. The event hall, in a trendy downtown district, the flowers flown in from out of state, the banquet for 200 guests. And now I understood why. Because when you have total control of the stage, you can write any script. Eleanor, Harper said with that sweet voice she used when she wanted to seem generous. I know that at your age it is difficult to maintain such a large house. That is why Lucas and I thought you would be more comfortable in something smaller, more manageable. At my age, as if my 67 years turned me into a decrepit old woman, incapable of opening a door. And since my parents and my sister Jessica are going through a difficult time, she continued, we thought it would be perfect for them to help you with the expenses of your house while you settle into Lucas's condo. It is a solution that benefits everyone, do you not think? The table where my neighbors, Mrs. Higgins and Mr. Henderson, were seated, fell into an awkward silence. I saw them exchanging glances. Some guests were already murmuring. Others pretended to check their phones. Lucas would not even look at me. He had his eyes glued to his plate, like when he was a child and knew he had done something wrong. I took a deep breath. It smelled of orange blossoms and expensive perfume. It smelled of betrayal wrapped in gift paper. Harper, I said finally, with a calmness that surprised even me. I appreciate your generosity, but there is something you should know. I stood up. All eyes were on me. That house that you so gently want me to leave is not just mine. It is the result of 15 years of working 12 hours a day after becoming a widow. It is my husband's legacy sold brick by brick to pay for my son's university tuition. It is every dollar I did not spend on myself to give Lucas a future. Harper blinked. Her smile trembled just barely. And most importantly, I continued, feeling my voice growing firmer, the thing is, your parents and your sister, those who are supposedly going to move in to help me, where are they? Because I have been at this wedding for 3 hours and I have not seen any of them. The silence was now absolute. Lucas stood up abruptly. His chair screeched against the hardwood floor. Mom, please, do not make a scene, he whispered urgently. A scene? I repeated. Son, you all just publicly announced that you are going to strip me of my home, and I am the one making a scene. But the worst had not happened yet. If this story has already given you goosebumps, subscribe so you do not miss how it ends. Because what is coming, they will never see coming. That night I did not sleep. I sat in the living room of my house, the same house they now wanted to snatch from me, looking at the photographs hanging on the walls. Arthur and I on our wedding day. Lucas, at just 3 years old, covered in flour in the kitchen. Our business, Arthur's Hardware, with its freshly painted green sign. 15 years had passed since Arthur died. 15 years since that early morning when a heart attack took him while he slept beside me. He was barely 52 years old. Lucas had just turned 18. I remember the smell of disinfectant in the hospital, the sound of my own sobs, my husband's cold hand between mine. And I also remember Lucas's terrified look when I told him his dad would not be coming home. I had to be strong. I had no choice. The hardware store had been Arthur's dream. He opened it with his own hands, brick by brick, shelf by shelf. In the good times, we had 3 employees. We sold everything: cement, rebar, tools, paint. The contractors in the neighborhood knew us by name. Arthur whistled while he attended to customers. I kept the books in a hardcover ledger. After his death, I tried to keep it running. For 6 months, I got up at 5 in the morning to open the store. I carried bags of cement that hurt my back. I learned about wire gauges and types of nails. But it was not the same. Suppliers started raising prices. Competition from the big box chains was choking us little by little. One afternoon, while closing the metal shutter, I realized I was losing money every month, and Lucas had just received his acceptance letter to a prestigious private university to study civil engineering. Tuition was $25,000 a semester, 4 years, 8 semesters, $200,000 just in tuition, not counting books, materials, transportation. That night was no different from this one. I did not sleep either. I ran the numbers over and over in that same hardcover ledger where Arthur recorded sales. The next day, I hired an appraiser. An older gentleman with thick glasses checked every corner of the hardware store: the inventory, the location, the lease, the clientele. $1,200,000, he said finally. It is a noble business, Mrs. Mendoza. I am sorry you have to sell it. And I sold it. I signed the papers with a trembling hand. I watched as they dismantled the green sign. I packed the memories in cardboard boxes. With that money, I did 3 things. I paid for Lucas's full 4 years of university in advance. I bought the house where I live now, a property in a nice suburb that cost $450,000. And with what was left, I bought a 2-bedroom condo downtown for $150,000 that I put in Lucas's name. It is your inheritance, my son, I told him when he turned 21. For when you get married, so you have a place to start. He hugged me. He told me I was the best mother in the world. He promised he would never let me down. But promises, I discovered later, weigh less than air when there is a beautiful woman whispering in your ear. I was left with barely $20,000 in savings. I looked for work as a freelance bookkeeper. I had studied accounting before getting married, although I never practiced formally. I started keeping the books for small businesses in the neighborhood: a dry cleaner, 2 stationery stores, a coffee shop. I earned enough for my expenses without touching my savings. I never asked Lucas for anything. Not a dollar, not a favor. I wanted him to fly free, to build his life without the weight of guilt or obligation. But now, sitting in my living room at 3 in the morning, with my party outfit still on and my makeup running from tears, I wondered if I had not made the worst mistake of my life. Because by giving him everything without asking for anything in return, perhaps I taught him that my love had no price, and what has no price, anyone can trample on. The first time Lucas spoke to me about Harper was on a Sunday. He came to lunch with that nervous smile he had when he wanted to tell me something important. He brought flowers, something he had not done since he was a teenager. "Mom, I met someone," he said while I served the pot roast he liked so much. It was 2 years ago. Lucas was 33, working at a major construction firm and earning well. He had had girlfriends before, but none had made him like this. With bright eyes, restless hands, that energy of someone who has just discovered something wonderful. Her name is Harper. She is a business administrator. I met her at a conference on urban development. 3 weeks later, he introduced her to me. I remember she arrived in high heels that clicked loudly against the floor of my house. She wore dark sunglasses even though we were indoors. Her handbag cost more than my refrigerator. She greeted me with 2 air kisses, the kind that do not really touch your cheek. "Mrs. Eleanor, what a house. So cozy," she said, looking around with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Cozy, that word people use when they do not want to say small or modest. During the meal, she talked mainly about herself, about her work in the family business, about her trips to Miami and the Hamptons, about her dad who had been an important businessman. All in the past tense, I noticed, but I did not give it importance then. "Lucas told me you were widowed very young," she said suddenly, looking at me with something that looked like pity. "It must have been very hard to raise a son alone." "It was," I replied, "but it was worth every sacrifice. Of course, although now you can rest, right? Lucas is already a grown man. It sounded reasonable, even kind. But there was something in her tone that made me uncomfortable, as if she were measuring, calculating, planning. The visits became more frequent, and with each one, Harper dropped little comments, like poisoned seeds planted with care. This house is huge for one person. Do you not feel lonely sometimes? I have seen beautiful apartments for people your age. Eleanor, modern, with an elevator, without so many stairs to take care of. Have you not thought about selling? With what this property is worth, you could live peacefully for the rest of your life, without worries. And the worst part, she always said it in front of Lucas, always with that sweet, concerned voice, as if she really cared about my well-being. At first, my son interrupted her. Harper, my mom is fine where she is. But little by little he began to stay silent, then to nod, then to repeat the same phrases. One day he came alone to visit me. It was a year ago, just 6 months after starting his relationship with Harper. Mom, I have been thinking, he said, nervously stirring his coffee. This house really is very big for you, and the maintenance must be expensive. The stairs, the garden. Lucas, I have been taking care of this house for 15 years. I like my garden. I like having space. I know. I am just saying that, well, you have the condo, it is more practical, and you could rent this house, have extra income. Harper was not present, but it was as if she were sitting between us, whispering from his lips. Is this your idea or Harper's? I asked directly. He turned red. It is a conversation we had, yes, but it makes sense, Mom. Think about it. I did not mention the topic again, but I began to observe, to pay attention. I noticed how Harper touched Lucas's arm every time I said something. A soft touch, almost imperceptible, but constant, like a reminder. I noticed how she diverted conversations when I talked about my plans, about the improvements I wanted to make to the house, about my prize-winning hydrangeas. I noticed how always, she found a way to mention how complicated my life was, how tired I must be, how lonely I lived. One afternoon, while she was in the bathroom, I checked Lucas's phone, which he had left on the table. Yes, I did it, and I do not regret it. I saw messages from Harper. Your mom is stubborn, but she is going to give in. Just keep insisting. That house is worth a fortune, baby. Think about our future. My parents really need a place, and your mom has options. I closed the phone with trembling hands, but I said nothing, because I knew that if I confronted Lucas, he would defend Harper. Because that is how these manipulations work. They isolate you slowly from those who could open your eyes. So I waited, I observed, and I prepared for the blow that I knew would come. Only I never imagined it would be at his own wedding, in front of 200 people, where they would finally show their true intentions. After that scene at the wedding, Lucas caught up with me in the parking lot. I was looking for my car keys with shaking hands, the car lights reflecting on the wet pavement. It had rained during the party, as if the sky was also crying for what it had just witnessed. Mom, wait! His voice sounded desperate. I stopped. I did not turn around. I need to explain to you. Explain what, Lucas? That you decided my life without consulting me? That you humiliated me in front of all those people? It was not like that. Harper just wanted. She thought it would be easier if we announced it publicly, so you would not feel pressured to say yes just for me. I turned around then. I looked him in the eyes, those eyes that looked so much like his father's. And did it work? Do I feel less pressured now that 200 people know you are going to kick me out of my house? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he had done since he was a child when he was nervous. Harper's parents, Mom, they lost their house, they have debts. Richard had problems with his business and that is why I have to pay? That is why I have to give up my home? It is not giving up. It is sharing. It is helping a family in need. I am 67 years old, Lucas. I worked all my life. I sold your father's business, his dreams, to give you a future. And now you ask me to hand over my present too? He remained silent. In the distance, the music from the party continuing inside could be heard. They did not come today because they are ashamed, he said finally. Susan, Richard, and Jessica did not want to come because they knew this would be awkward. How convenient. I took a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. Mom, you are going to have to understand that it is not just you anymore. Now I am part of a larger family. Harper is my wife. Her problems are my problems, and I need you to. To what? To sacrifice myself once more? To make myself small so others can fit? He did not answer. And in that silence, I understood that I had lost something more than a house. I had lost the son I raised. I got into my car and drove to my house crying the whole way. The suburban streets glistened with the recent rain. I passed in front of the old location of the hardware store. Now it was a convenience store. Not even traces of the green sign remained. For the next 3 days, Lucas did not call me, but Harper did. Eleanor, I am very sorry for how things turned out. Her voice sounded rehearsed. It was not my intention to make you uncomfortable. I just thought it would be easier if we were all in agreement from the beginning. Nobody asked me if I agreed. I know. That is why I am calling you. I want to explain the situation well. Can we meet? Maybe for coffee? Just the two of us. I agreed. Not because I trusted her, but because I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. We met at a Starbucks in the wealthy part of town. She arrived late, as always, with huge sunglasses and that extremely expensive handbag. My family is going through a very difficult time. She started after ordering a latte with almond milk. My dad, Richard, had an import business. He was successful, Eleanor. We had a house in the hills, 2 new cars. But 3 years ago, everything got complicated. There were problems with suppliers, accumulated debts. How much do they owe? I asked directly. She blinked, surprised by my frankness. That is not. It is not just about money. It is about dignity, about not letting my family sleep on the street. Where are they living now? In a rented apartment, small. My mom, Susan, had to look for work after years of being a housewife. My sister, Jessica, got divorced recently and is with them. It is humiliating for everyone. She drank her coffee. I saw her perfectly manicured nails, her watch that cost more than 3 months of my income. Your house has 4 bedrooms, she continued. More than enough space. They could help you with maintenance, with expenses, and you would be calmer in Lucas's condo. No stairs, no garden to take care of, no responsibilities. I like my responsibilities. Eleanor. Her tone changed. It became colder. Be reasonable. Lucas is my husband now. This is not just your decision. The condo is also in his name. Technically, he already has a legal right over that property. There it was, the threat barely veiled. Are you telling me that you are going to force me? I am saying that it would be much easier if you cooperated. For everyone, especially for your relationship with your son. I left that coffee shop feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. That night I hired a private investigator, a man recommended by Mr. Henderson, my neighbor. His name was Jack Miller. He had a modest office downtown. I need to know everything about the Collins family, I told him. Richard, Susan, and Jessica. Their debts, their past, everything. He charged me $2,000 up front. It was worth every penny. What he discovered froze my blood. The report arrived a week later. 30 pages that I read sitting in my kitchen, with a cup of coffee that went cold without me taking a single sip. Richard Collins had not lost his business due to problems with suppliers. He lost it because he gambled. Casinos, online poker, sports betting. He owed $85,000 to loan sharks, one of them with connections I preferred not to investigate further. Susan Collins had been fired from her last job at a boutique for petty theft. Small things at first. A scarf, some earrings, then larger amounts. The owner did not press charges out of pity, but fired her without a recommendation. And Jessica? Jessica was perhaps the worst. She had a history of real estate fraud. She convinced 3 elderly people to invest in properties that never existed. One of the victims was a 72-year-old widow who lost her life savings. $30,000. I closed the folder with trembling hands. This was the family they wanted to put in my house. These were the poor, needy people for whom I had to sacrifice myself. I called Lucas that same night. I need to talk to you. Now. Mom, it is 10 at night. Now, Lucas. He arrived an hour later, alone. Harper had stayed at the condo they now shared, the one I had bought thinking of his future, not his prison. I showed him the report. I saw his face change color with every page. This has to be a mistake. Jack Miller is the best investigator in the area. Everything is documented. Invoices, police reports, testimonies. He slumped onto the sofa, the same sofa where I read him stories when he was a child. Harper did not know. Are you sure? Or did you just not want to know? He remained silent. Lucas, these people have serious problems, debts with dangerous people, criminal records, and you want to put them in my house, in the house I bought with the money from your father's business. They are my wife's family, and I am your mother. Does that mean nothing anymore? He stood up abruptly. I knew you would do this. Harper warned me that you would try to sabotage our marriage. I froze. Excuse me? You have always been controlling, Mom. You never liked any of my girlfriends. And now that I finally found someone with whom I want to build a future, you do everything possible to ruin it. Lucas. No, let me finish. I am tired of feeling guilty. Yes, you made sacrifices. Yes, you paid for my college. But that does not give you the right to decide how I live my life. I am just showing you the truth. Your truth. The truth according to Eleanor Mendoza, who always knows more, who is always right. His voice trembled with rage. Harper loves me. She chose me. And if you cannot accept that, then the problem is you. He left, slamming the door. The sound resonated throughout the empty house. For the next few days, the silence was absolute. Lucas did not answer my calls. My messages were left on read without a reply. But Harper did do something much worse than silence. She started posting on social media, Instagram stories with messages like, "When your mother-in-law prefers an empty house rather than helping her own family." Facebook posts. Reflection. How far does the selfishness of a mother go who has everything and does not want to share anything? She never mentioned my name, but our mutual acquaintances knew exactly who she was talking about. The comments were divided. Some defended her. How sad when old people become bitter. I also had a selfish mother-in-law. I understand you perfectly. Others defended me, but they were fewer. Because Harper's narrative was simpler, easier to digest. Young and kind woman against cruel mother-in-law who does not want to help. Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor of a lifetime, came one afternoon with muffins. Do not pay attention to them, Eleanor. People talk because they do not know, but they did know. Or at least some knew. I received calls from distant relatives, cousins I had not seen in years, all with the same message. Is it true that you do not want to help your daughter-in-law's family? At the grocery store, the lady who sold me produce looked at me differently. At church, some women stopped greeting me. The worst part was when I went to the bank to do a transaction. The teller recognized me. You are Lucas Mendoza's mom, right? I saw what your daughter-in-law posted. What a shame, ma'am. Kids these days don't value what one does for them. It was not compassion I saw in her eyes. It was pity, and something worse. Satisfaction. That morbid pleasure of seeing someone else sunk in problems. One night, someone knocked on my door at 11. It was Lucas. He had suitcases. Can I stay here tonight? He asked with a small voice. What happened? We argued. Harper, she says that if I do not convince you to move, it is because I love you more than her. I let him in. I made him chamomile tea. He sat at the kitchen table like when he was 20 and came to tell me his problems. Mom, I am tired. Harper cries every day for her parents. She tells me I am a bad son because I do not support her. But you also make me feel guilty. I do not want you to feel guilty, son. I want you to use your head. And yes, he stopped, as if it cost him to say the words. What if you let them have the house just for a while, until their situation improves? A year? Maybe 2? I looked at him directly. Do you trust that they will leave after that time? He did not answer, because he knew the answer. He stayed that night, but in the morning Harper arrived crying, begging him to come back, and he left. I was left alone in my house, that house that now felt too big, too silent. And for the first time in 15 years, since I buried Arthur, I cried feeling that I had lost everything. But I still did not know that the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks passed without news from Lucas. 2 weeks in which I woke up every morning with a weight on my chest that did not let me breathe well. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and saw a woman I no longer recognized. Swollen eyes, deeper wrinkles, grayer hair than I remembered. But pain, I discovered, can turn into something else when you let it settle. It can transform into clarity, into determination, into something cold and sharp as a knife. One morning I woke up different. I tied my hair back, put on my usual blouse, made coffee, and made a decision. I was not going to continue being the victim of this story. I called Jack Miller again. "Mrs. Mendoza," his voice sounded surprised. "I did not expect to hear from you so soon. I need you to dig deeper, much deeper. I want to know everything about Harper too. Her past, her previous relationships, her work, everything. Is that going to cost? I have savings. Tell me how much." We agreed on $3,000 more. Money that hurt to spend, but that I knew was an investment in my future. While Jack worked, I did too. I began to document everything. Every text message, every social media post, every interaction. I bought a new notebook, one of those hardcover ones, like the one Arthur used for the business. On the first page I wrote, "The truth about the Collins family." I also hired a lawyer, not just any lawyer. Attorney Catherine Walsh, a specialist in family and estate law. She had a small office, but her reputation was impeccable. "Tell me everything," she said when we sat in her office. I told her, from the wedding to Harper's veiled threats. I showed her the property documents for my house and the condo. She took off her glasses and looked at me with an expression I could not interpret. "Mrs. Mendoza, did you know that your house is not completely in your name?" I felt the floor move beneath my feet. "What do you mean it isn't? When you bought this property 15 years ago, you signed a trust. Look here." She pointed to a clause in the documents that I did not even remember reading. "The house is in a family trust. You are the grantor and lifetime beneficiary." "Yes, but there are specific conditions." "What kind of conditions?" "If someone who is not a direct blood heir lives on the property without the express consent of the grantor, the property can revert to, let me see, a charitable foundation designated in Annex B." I leaned back in the chair. "I do not remember signing that." "It is common. Many notaries include these clauses as additional protection." "Was the notary who attended you a friend of your husband?" "Yes, Ernest Williams. He was a classmate of Arthur's in high school. Then he probably did it to protect you, so that no one could take the house from you or take advantage of you after becoming a widow." My mind worked quickly. What if there are already people living there, people I did not authorize? "It depends. How long have they been living there?" "No one lives there yet, but they are pressuring me to let them in." "Then you have an advantage. According to this clause, if you allow unauthorized persons to live there for more than 90 continuous days, the trust activates automatically. You lose the property. And if I want to activate it earlier, can I do it intentionally?" Attorney Walsh looked at me with renewed interest. "Explain to me what you have in mind." I explained. Everything. My plan was still forming, but the central idea was clear. If I was going to lose something, it would be on my own terms, not theirs. 3 days later, Jack Miller handed me his second report. This one was even thicker than the first. I sat in my living room with a cup of herbal tea to calm my nerves and started reading. Harper Collins, 28 years old. But the surprises began much earlier than her age. She had had 3 serious relationships in the last 5 years, all with older men, all with properties or businesses. The first relationship ended in a lawsuit for harassment, after he asked her to return a car he had given her. It was settled out of court. The second relationship was with a businessman from Ohio. They lasted 8 months. 3 months after breaking up, the man lost his company under strange circumstances, signed documents he did not remember signing, emptied accounts. He could never prove that Harper was involved, but the investigator had found transfers to Susan Collins' name on suspicious dates. The third relationship, the third one, left me breathless. She had been engaged. The man's name was Richard Salinas, owner of 3 fast food franchises. Rich, much more than Lucas. The engagement was broken off 2 weeks before the wedding. Why? Because Richard's mother hired a private investigator. She discovered the same thing I was discovering now, and Richard had the guts to end the relationship. Harper sued for emotional distress. She lost the case, but Richard had to pay her $5,000 just to close the process without further scandals. After that, Lucas appeared, my son, civil engineer with a good salary, properties, and most importantly, a widowed mother with a big house in a prestigious suburb. I kept reading. The report included screenshots of conversations that Jack had obtained through contacts, messages between Harper and Jessica. This one bites. The old lady won't last long with that pressure, and if she refuses, she won't refuse. Lucas is already on my side, and if the old lady doesn't cooperate, we will make her life impossible until she gives in. My hands trembled so much that I had to leave the sheets on the table. There was more. Harper did not work in any family business. That company went bankrupt 4 years ago. Since then, she lived off odd temporary jobs and mainly off loans from friends and acquaintances that she never paid back. Her degree in business administration was real, but she had been suspended from her last job for embezzlement. Small amounts, but enough to get her fired without a recommendation. The entire Collins family was a walking scam, and my son had married the ringleader. That night I did not sleep. I sat in my kitchen, with all the pages of the report spread out in front of me like pieces of a macabre puzzle. But now I knew the truth. And the truth, however painful, gave me power. The phone rang at 2 a.m. It was Lucas. "Mom." His voice sounded strange. "I need to tell you something." "What happened?" I signed a lease for your house. Harper told me that you had already agreed to move and that we only needed to formalize the agreement with her parents. I signed as a guarantor because the condo is in my name. I remained silent. A long, heavy silence. "Mom, when did you sign that?" 3 days ago. But today, I saw the full contract and, "Mom, it says her parents can live there indefinitely, and that if you do not vacate in 30 days, they can start a legal process." I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. "I see. I am sorry," I thought. Harper told me. "I know what she told you, and I know what you signed. What am I going to do? You already made your choice, Lucas. Now I am going to make mine." I hung up before he could respond. I poured myself a glass of the brandy I kept for special occasions. Arthur had bought it to celebrate our 25th anniversary. We never reached that anniversary. I drank slowly, feeling the liquid burn my throat. And then, with the clarity that only arrives in the darkest moments, I knew exactly what I had to do. I gave them exactly what they wanted, or at least, that is what they thought. 3 days after that night call, I invited Lucas and Harper to my house. I made coffee and bought pastries from the corner bakery, as I did when Lucas was a child. Harper arrived with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Lucas would not look at me directly. "Thanks for having us, Eleanor," she said, making herself comfortable on my sofa as if it were already hers. I know things got tense, but in the end, family is family, right? I smiled. A tired, defeated smile. The smile they wanted to see. "You are right. I have been thinking a lot these days." I served the coffee with a slightly trembling hand, a detail that did not go unnoticed. "I am not young anymore. This house is too much for me alone." I saw Harper straighten up, how her eyes shone with anticipated victory. "The condo downtown is more practical," I continued. "No stairs, no garden to maintain. And if Harper's family really needs help, Mom." Lucas sounded relieved, almost guilty. "I just need time to organize my things," I said softly. 15 years here. Many memories to pack." "Of course," Harper replied quickly. "Take the time you need. 2 weeks. A month. 3 weeks," I said. "I move in 3 weeks." Harper reached her hand across the table and squeezed mine. Her fingers were cold. "You are a wise woman, Eleanor. This is best for everyone." When they left, I sat in my living room for hours, looking at every corner, the armchair where Arthur read the newspaper, the stain on the wall Lucas left when he was 8 years old and played ball inside the house, the curtains I had chosen 10 years ago. But I did not cry. I had no more tears. The Collins family moved in 2 days later. They did not wait the 3 weeks. They arrived with a moving truck on a Tuesday morning. I stood there, watching as they unloaded furniture, boxes, televisions. Richard Collins was a man of about 60, paunchy, with that air of someone who once had money and never got over losing it. Susan was thin, nervous, with hands always busy with something. Jessica was 32, dyed blonde, high heels, even for a move. Mrs. Mendoza. Richard greeted me with false cordiality. "How kind of you to allow us to stay here. We appreciate it enormously." "It is temporary," I replied. Of course. Just until our situation improves." Liar. I could see it in his eyes. They had no intention of ever leaving. I gave them a tour of the house. I showed them where the water shut-off valves were, how the heating worked, where I kept the tools. "This bedroom was my son's," I said, opening the door to the room that still kept some of his soccer trophies. "Perfect for me," said Jessica, entering without asking for permission. She ripped a poster off the wall. "This has to go. I am going to paint it pink." Something tightened in my chest, but I just nodded. In my bedroom, the master, Susan, touched my things. "This clock?" She pointed to the antique wall clock hanging by the window. "Is it valuable?" "It was my husband's. His grandfather gave it to him." It is a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? But surely we can sell it. These antiques are sometimes worth something." "It is not for sale." "Well, technically you do not live here anymore, so." She laughed. A sharp laugh that drilled into my ears. I packed my essential things that same afternoon. Clothes, important documents, photos of Arthur and Lucas. I took the wall clock too, wrapped in a blanket. Lucas came to help me load the boxes into his car. We worked in silence. The Collins family watched us from the living room, drinking beers, commenting on what they were going to change first. "That kitchen is very outdated," I heard Jessica say. "It needs a complete remodel." In Lucas's condo, the one that would now be my home, I unpacked my things with mechanical movements. It was a nice space, 2 bedrooms, good lighting. But it felt foreign, like a hotel where I was visiting. I hung the clock in the living room. Lucas helped me level it. "Mom, I know this is hard. It is okay," I lied. "Harper promised it will be temporary. As soon as her parents find work." I did not answer. It made no sense. For the next 2 weeks, Lucas visited me every 3 days. He brought me food, asked me how I was. I smiled, said everything was fine, that I was adapting. But I called my house, my old house, just to hear who answered. The first time Jessica answered, "Hello." Her voice sounded impatient. I hung up without saying anything. The second time, Richard answered. "Collins Residence," he said proudly. "Collins Residence, in the house I bought with the money from my dead husband's business." I hung up with trembling hands. I started driving down my old street, just to see, like someone visiting a grave. One afternoon I saw something that froze my blood. A truck from a pawn shop parked in front of my house. 2 men were taking out furniture. My mahogany bookcase, the dining table where we celebrated 20 of Lucas's birthdays, the chairs that Arthur had varnished himself. I called Lucas immediately. "They are selling my furniture." "What? No, there must be a mistake. I am here. I see them. They are taking everything out." I heard him confront Harper. Muffled voices. Then he came back to the phone. "Harper says her parents needed money urgently, that you said they could dispose of whatever you did not take." "I never said that. Mom, they are just things. Old furniture. They were your father's things." Long silence. "I am sorry, but I cannot do anything anymore. They already took them." That night I received a call from Mrs. Higgins, my former neighbor. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something. That family, they are destroying your garden. They tore out all your prize-winning hydrangeas. They say they are going to make a modern terrace. The hydrangeas I had planted 12 years ago, that I watered every morning, that I pruned with my own hands. I also saw that they sold your wall clock," Mrs. Higgins continued. "The one that was in the living room. I saw it on a Facebook post. They sold it for $800. That clock was in my bedroom. I took it with me. Then they had another one just like it, because it was definitely yours. It had the inscription on the back, right? For Arthur, with eternal love." My breath cut short. They had entered the condo. They had stolen the clock while I was not there. I called Lucas. He did not answer. I texted him. He left me on read. I called Harper. She did answer. Eleanor, I do not know what you are talking about. My mom found that clock in a closet in the house. She thought you had left it because you did not want it. Liar. I took it with me. You entered my apartment. Be careful what you accuse. You have no proof. And honestly, at your age, it is normal to forget where you leave things. She hung up. I sat on the floor of my borrowed apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, and for the first time, I truly understood what kind of people I was dealing with. They were not just opportunists, they were predators. But I could do that too. I took out my notebook, the hardcover one, and added a new page. Evidence of theft and violation of private property. Underneath, I began to write. Every detail, every stolen object, every lie. The trap was ready. It only remained for them to fall completely into it. And they lacked exactly 67 days for the trust clause to activate. 67 days to lose everything. 67 days for my revenge. On day 75, after the Collins moved into my house, I called Attorney Walsh. It is time, I said simply. Are you sure? Once we start this, there is no turning back. Completely sure. We met in her office that same afternoon. I brought my notebook, all the evidence I had collected, the photographs Mrs. Higgins had sent me, screenshots of the posts where they were selling my belongings. It has been more than 90 days, explained the attorney, checking her notes. According to the trust clause, by allowing unauthorized persons to live on the property for more than 90 consecutive days, you have violated the terms of the contract, but I did not authorize them. They imposed themselves. Legally, by moving out and handing them the keys, it is considered implied authorization. However, she looked at me over her glasses. There is an additional clause that you probably never read completely. She opened the trust document to a page marked with yellow flags. It says here, in case of violation of the terms by proven coercion or fraud towards the grantor may request the immediate activation of the trust with transfer of the property to the designated charitable foundation, retaining the right of lifetime residence if so desired. I do not understand. It means that if you can prove they forced you to leave your house through deceit or manipulation, you can activate the trust intentionally. The property passes to the foundation. The Collins have no right over it, and you can choose if you want to continue living there as a lifetime beneficiary. I felt something expand in my chest. Hope, power. And can I prove it? With what you showed me today, yes, the lease contract your son signed without your consent, the threatening text messages, the unauthorized sales of your personal property, the theft of the clock, all this constitutes coercion and fraud. How long will it take? If we file today, and considering we have solid documentation, we could have a resolution in 3 weeks, maybe 4. Do it. That night I said nothing to Lucas, not even when he came with Chinese takeout and asked me how I was. I ate my chow mein in silence, nodded at the appropriate moments. Let him talk about his work. Harper is very happy, he commented. She says her parents finally feel at peace, that your house gave them stability. How nice, I replied with a soft smile. See, Mom? In the end, everything turned out well. You just needed to adapt to change. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to show him all the photos, all the proofs of what his precious wife and her family were doing. But I held back. Silence is also a weapon, and I was learning to use it. A week later, I received the official notification. Attorney Walsh had filed the lawsuit. The family court had accepted the case with urgent status, given the evidence of fraud and manipulation towards an elderly woman. Now comes the interesting part, she told me on the phone. They are going to notify all parties involved, your son, your daughter-in-law, and the current residents of the property. They have 5 business days to respond, and then there is a hearing, and that is where you are going to have to be very strong, Eleanor. They are going to try to paint you as the villain, as the selfish mother who regretted helping. Let them try. The notification arrived on a Tuesday. Lucas appeared at my apartment at 8 at night. He did not knock. He had a key. He entered like a hurricane. What is this? He shouted, waving the papers. A lawsuit? Are you suing us? I stayed seated on the sofa, with my knitting in my hands. I had started knitting a scarf, something to keep my hands busy. I am not suing you. I am exercising my right over my property. It is the same thing. Mom, how could you? Harper's family is going to be on the street, like I was from my own house. You chose to move. I put the knitting aside. I looked at him directly. Did I choose? Lucas, you signed a contract behind my back. You pressured me publicly at your wedding. You sold your father's furniture. You stole the clock your dad loved. You destroyed my garden. Is that choosing? He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that now reminded me more of his father-in-law than Arthur. Those were mistakes, misunderstandings, but this is cruel, Mom. Harper is destroyed. She cries every day. How convenient. What happened to you? You are not the woman who raised me. The mom I knew would never be so vindictive. I stood up. I had to look up to look him in the eye, but my voice did not tremble. The mom you knew died the day you chose a woman you barely knew over the woman who sacrificed everything for you. The mom you knew stayed buried under 15 years of sacrifice that you trampled on in 3 months of marriage. Mom, the hearing is in 2 weeks. There I present all my evidence. The judge will decide. And Lucas, I paused. I suggest you get a good lawyer, because the charges for theft of personal property and illegal sale of goods are also in the file. He went pale. Are you going to put us in jail? Not me. The law will if they find those who sold your father's clock, my furniture, and everything else guilty. He left, without saying more. The door closed with a thud. I sat down again. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from reclaimed power. That night, Harper called me. Her voice was no longer sweet. It was pure poison. You miserable old woman. Do you think you are going to win? I have lawyers, good lawyers, and I am going to drag your name through the mud. When I finish with you, no one in this city is going to want to see you. Try it, I replied calmly. But I suggest you better use that lawyer money to find where you and your family are going to live in 3 weeks. Lucas is going to choose me. You know that, right? He is going to abandon you. You are going to die alone, bitter, with no one. Maybe, but I am going to die in my house. Or at least knowing I did the right thing. I hung up. The next 2 weeks were hell. Harper carried out her threat. She posted on all her social media. She painted me as the mother-in-law from hell, a cruel woman who was evicting a vulnerable family. I received hate messages, anonymous calls. Someone scratched my car with the words, "selfish old lady." But I also received other calls. From Jessica's previous victims. From Harper's ex-fiancé, Richard, who offered to testify on my behalf. From neighbors who had seen how the Collins were destroying my property. Attorney Walsh organized everything meticulously. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, every document. We are going to win, she told me the night before the hearing. But prepare yourself. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. I am ready. And I was. After 75 days of feeling trampled, humiliated, invisible, I was finally ready to roar. The day of the hearing, I woke up before dawn. I put on my gray suit, the same one I wore when I handled important accounts. I combed my hair carefully. I painted my lips a discreet red. I wanted to look like what I was, a 67-year-old woman who knew exactly what she was worth. Attorney Walsh picked me up at 7:30. Nervous? She asked as she drove toward the courthouse. Calm, I replied. And it was true. I had been through too much to be afraid now. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. Beige walls, dark wood desks, the national seal hanging behind the judge's bench. It smelled of old paper and disinfectant. The Collins were already there. Richard with a suit that was tight on his belly, Susan with a black dress as if she were going to a funeral, Jessica with heels too high and makeup too heavy, and Harper. Harper wore a simple cream dress, no jewelry, with her hair tied back in a ponytail, the perfect image of humility. Lucas was sitting next to her. He did not look at me when I entered. The judge was a man of about 50, with thick glasses and a serious expression. His name was Hector Ramirez, according to the plaque on his desk. "Good morning," he said, when we were all seated. "We are here for the case of Eleanor Mendoza, widow of Sanchez, against the Collins family, regarding the property located at," he read the full address of my house, my old house. "Attorney Walsh, you may proceed with your opening statement." Catherine stood up. She carried a brown briefcase full of documents. Your Honor, I come to represent Mrs. Eleanor Mendoza, a 67-year-old widow who has been a victim of coercion, manipulation, and fraud by her daughter-in-law and her family. She began to present the evidence, one by one, methodically. The lease agreement that Lucas signed without my consent, the screenshots of the posts where they were selling my furniture, Mrs. Higgins's testimonies about the destruction of my garden, the photographs of Arthur's clock being sold online. The Collins lawyer, a young man with too much gel in his hair, tried to object constantly. Your Honor, Mrs. Mendoza voluntarily left the property. She signed documents handing over keys. I signed no document, I interrupted. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Mendoza, please wait your turn to testify. Excuse me, Your Honor, Catherine continued. She presented the messages between Harper and Jessica that the investigator had obtained. Those where they called me old and planned to pressure me until I gave in. I saw Harper turn pale. Your Honor, said her lawyer, those private messages were obtained illegally. They were obtained by a licensed private investigator, Catherine replied. Completely legal when there is founded suspicion of fraud. The judge took notes without expression. Then it was the Collins' turn to defend themselves. Their lawyer called Harper to the stand first. Miss Collins, Mrs. Mendoza, she corrected with a soft voice. Sorry, Mrs. Mendoza. Can you explain to the judge how you came to live on your mother-in-law's property? Harper wiped away a non-existent tear. My family was going through a very difficult time, Your Honor. My father lost his business. We were about to end up on the street. When Lucas and I got married, his mom, Eleanor, told us she would help us, that we could use her house while she moved to a smaller place. Did she offer voluntarily? Yes. She said it was her wedding gift to us. Lie. Bold-faced lie. And the furniture you sold? Eleanor told us to take whatever we wanted, that she no longer needed it. She even gave us permission to make modifications to the house. And the clock? That clock was in a closet. We thought she had forgotten it. My mom sold it to buy food. We didn't know it was important. Every word was like a stab, but I remained still, serene. The judge looked directly at her. Do you have proof that Mrs. Mendoza authorized these actions? Harper hesitated. It was verbal. Everything was verbal. I understand, they called Lucas next. My son took the stand, avoiding my gaze. Mr. Mendoza, said the Collins lawyer, did your mother agree with the arrangement? Lucas shifted uncomfortably in his seat. She was reluctant at first, but eventually she understood it was for the best. Would you say she was forced? No, I do not think so. You do not think so, or she was not forced? The judge's voice was sharp. There was pressure, yes, but pressure from whom? Lucas looked at Harper. She held his gaze with pleading eyes. From circumstances. Harper's family needed help and… Answer the question, Mr. Mendoza. Was your mother pressured or not? The silence stretched, heavy, dense. Yes, he said finally, in a low voice. Yes, she was pressured. I heard Harper's stifled cry. The judge took note. Then it was my turn. I went up to the stand with a firm step. I put my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. And I told it. All of it. No embellishments, no drama, just the facts. I told them about the announcement at the wedding, about the pressure messages, about the contract signed behind my back, about seeing my dead husband's memories being sold, about the torn-out hydrangeas, about the stolen clock. Why didn't you defend yourself earlier, Mrs. Mendoza? Asked the judge. Because I was afraid of losing my son. I thought if I gave in, if I made myself small, he would come back to me. But I was wrong. When you give in to vultures, they do not leave you alone. They just go for more meat. Harper stood up. That is a lie. She is the manipulative one here. She always has been. Order! The judge banged his gavel. Mrs. Mendoza, sit down or you will be removed from the courtroom. Catherine asked to speak. Your Honor, I would like to introduce an additional witness, Mr. Richard Salinas. Richard entered the room. Harper's ex-fiancé. A man of about 40, well-dressed, sure of himself. He testified for 20 minutes. He told how Harper had manipulated him, how she tried to keep properties in his name, How her family had tried to isolate him from his mother. The same pattern, he said, looking directly at Harper. She finds a man with resources. She approaches him playing the victim. She manipulates to obtain properties, and when she can no longer get more, she looks for the next one. Harper was crying now, real tears, desperate. The judge reviewed all the documents for what seemed like an eternity. "I have seen enough," he said finally. "The evidence presented clearly demonstrates a pattern of coercion and fraud. Furthermore, according to the terms of the trust presented, the property was protected against exactly this type of situation." He looked at the Collins. "The Collins family has 72 hours to completely vacate the property located at." He read the address. "Any item remaining after that period will be considered abandoned. Furthermore, an investigation will be ordered for the charges of illegal sale of property." "No!" shouted Susan. "We have nowhere to go. You should have thought about that before destroying Mrs. Mendoza's assets." Then he looked at me. "Mrs. Mendoza, according to the terms of the trust, you have two options: recover lifetime residence in the property or proceed with the transfer to the designated charitable foundation, which, as I see here, is the Widows in Hope Foundation." I took a deep breath. "I choose the transfer to the foundation, Your Honor, on the condition that the house be used to temporarily house widowed women who have lost their homes due to unfair circumstances. Women like I almost was." The judge nodded with something that looked like approval. "So it shall be done. This hearing is adjourned." When we left the room, Lucas caught up with me in the hallway. "Mom, I didn't know. I didn't know, Harper." "You did know. You just didn't want to see. Can you forgive me?" I looked at him. My son, the boy I carried in my arms, the young man I applauded at his graduation, the man who chose a stranger over me. Someday, maybe. But not today, Lucas. Today I need to heal. I walked away without looking back. Harper was leaning against the wall, sobbing. Richard was shouting obscenities. Susan was crying. Jessica was already on the phone, probably looking for where to hide from the charges that would come. But I walked down that hallway with my head held high, because for the first time in months, I breathed freely. 72 hours later, I returned to my house. Attorney Walsh accompanied me, along with a court officer and 2 witnesses. The Collins had already taken their things. They left the house like a battlefield, scratched walls, dirty floors, trash accumulated in the corners. They even tore down the curtains. The garden was a wasteland of turned earth where my hydrangeas used to grow. I walked through every room, feeling a mixture of sadness and liberation. In the kitchen, someone had burned the linoleum floor. In my old bedroom, they had painted the walls a shocking pink. The master bath had a broken mirror, but it was still my house. "I am sorry, Mrs. Mendoza," said the officer. "There are people who respect nothing." "It does not matter," I replied. "Walls can be painted, floors can be repaired. Stolen dignity is harder to recover, and I already recovered mine." I spent the next few days cleaning. Mrs. Higgins came to help me. Mr. Henderson brought tools to repair what could be repaired. Other neighbors, those who had always supported me, arrived with brooms, buckets, paint. "This is incredible, Eleanor," said Mrs. Higgins while we scrubbed the kitchen floor. "What you did, defending your house like that." I had no choice. Either I defended myself or I sank. "And your son? Have you heard from him?" I shook my head. "Nothing since the hearing. He will come back. Children always come back when their eyes are opened. I wasn't sure I wanted him back. Not yet." A week later, I received a call from the Widows in Hope Foundation. The director, a woman named Grace Ramos, wanted to meet with me. We met at a coffee shop downtown. "Mrs. Mendoza," she began with a warm smile. "First of all, let me tell you that what you did is extraordinary. That house can house up to 6 women at the same time. With the proper repairs, it will be a shelter for those who need it most." "And me?" I asked. "The judge said I had lifetime residence if I wanted it. Yes, you could live there as an administrator, help coordinate the shelter. Or, if you prefer, we can designate someone else and you would only visit when you wanted." I thought about it. I thought about living surrounded by women who had lost everything, as I almost lost myself, in turning my pain into purpose. "I want to participate," I said, "not as a full-time administrator, I am too old for that. But I want to help. Tell my story to the women who arrive. Let them know that you can survive betrayal, that you can recover dignity. Grace extended her hand. I shook it. 2 weeks later, the house was transformed. We had painted all the walls in light colors. We bought simple but dignified furniture. We replanted the garden with new hydrangeas and also with roses, jasmine, and a small herb garden. The first resident arrived on a Tuesday. Her name was Rose. She was 58 years old. Her son had kicked her out of her house so his girlfriend could move in. The story sounded terribly familiar to me. "You are not alone," I told her as I showed her to her room. "Here you are going to heal, and then you are going to fly." She cried in my arms, and I cried with her, because now I understood that my pain had not been in vain. A month after the hearing, Lucas appeared at the door. He no longer looked like the confident and proud man who had chosen Harper over me. He had deep, dark circles under his eyes. He had lost weight. His clothes were wrinkled. "Mom." I stayed at the door without inviting him in. "I got divorced," he said without preamble. "Harper, it was all true. Everything you said. I found her trying to get me to sign documents to sell the condo. My condo. The one you bought." "I am sorry," I said. And I meant it. No, I am sorry. I took too long to see what was always in front of me. I let myself be blinded by, I do not even know why. By the idea of love, I suppose. By not wanting to be alone. Fear of loneliness makes us accept toxic company. "Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I looked at him. My son, the product of my love with Arthur, the boy I carried, fed, educated with everything I had. Forgiveness is not asked for, Lucas. It is earned, with time, with actions, with real change. What do I have to do? First, be honest with yourself about why you betrayed me. It was not just Harper. There was something in you that chose to believe her instead of trusting me. He nodded with moist eyes. Second, rebuild your life with integrity. Not to impress me, but because that is what your father would have wanted. And third, understand that our relationship changed. I am no longer the mother who sacrifices herself in silence, and you can no longer be the son who takes that sacrifice for granted. I understand. Good. I paused. There is a room available here. Not for you, but you could come once a week to help with maintenance, with the garden, meet the women who are recovering, learn from their stories. Are you giving me a chance? I am giving you the chance to become the man your father would have been proud to know. He came the following Saturday, and the next, and the next. I saw him change slowly. I saw how he listened to Rose's stories, to Mariana who arrived later, to Claudia and Anna, abandoned, betrayed, stripped women who were rebuilding their lives brick by brick. One afternoon, while we worked together planting new hydrangeas, he said to me, "Thanks, Mom." Why? For not giving up on me, for showing me that true love has limits, that respect is more important than pleasing. I did not answer. I just kept planting. But inside, something healed a little more. 6 months passed. The house housed 5 women, all working, recovering, planning their futures. I lived in a small apartment nearby, but I spent most of my days at the house, helping, advising, simply being present. Mr. Henderson died in March. Mrs. Higgins asked me to speak at his funeral. "He always admired you," she told me. "He said you were the bravest woman he knew." At the funeral, surrounded by people I had known all my life, I spoke about Mr. Henderson, but also about courage. About the difference between the courage that shouts and the courage that stands firm in silence until the exact moment to act. Lucas was there. Since the hearing, he had become someone different, more humble, more aware. He worked hard to rebuild his life. He had sold the condo and bought a smaller one. He donated half the money to the foundation. "It is the least I can do," he said when I asked him why. "You do not do it for me," I reminded him. "You do it because it is the right thing." I never heard from Harper again. Someone told me she moved to Los Angeles, that she had found another man with money, that the pattern continued. The Collins faced charges for the illegal sale of my assets. Richard ended up paying a considerable fine. Jessica finally went to prison for the previous frauds that had been documented. Susan simply disappeared. I felt no joy for their misfortune, but I felt no pity either. I felt nothing, and that was liberating. A year after the hearing, on a warm October afternoon, I was sitting in the garden of the house. The hydrangeas had grown beautiful, more vibrant than ever. Rose was inside preparing dinner. Mariana was reading on the porch. Anna was watering the plants. Lucas arrived with flowers, as he did now every week. For you, Mom. I took them. They were sunflowers. My favorites. How are you? He asked, sitting next to me. Fine, really fine. And it was true. I met someone, he said shyly. Her name is Patricia. She is a teacher. You would like to meet her. Did you tell her your story? All of it. Including the ugly parts. Including what I did to my mother. And what did she say? That we all deserve a second chance, but that second chances are earned, not given away. I smiled. I like her already. That night, after Lucas left, I sat in the garden until it got dark. I watched the stars appearing one by one in the sky above the suburbs. I thought about Arthur, about how he would have handled all this, probably with more grace than me. But I also thought he would be proud, not of the revenge, but of the recovered dignity, because this was never about punishing. It was about not allowing them to erase me. Rose came out with 2 cups of tea. I thought you would like some company. Mrs. Mendoza. Thank you, dear. She sat next to me in silence. After a while she said, My son called today. Yes, he wants to talk. He says his girlfriend left him when she realized I had no money to give her. And what did you tell him? That I would see him, but on my terms. That if he wants a relationship with me, he has to earn it. I squeezed her hand. Well done. I learned from the best. We drank our tea in silence while the night settled completely. And in that silence, I understood something fundamental. True wealth was never in the house, nor in the furniture, nor in the properties. True wealth was in knowing when to fight, when to yield, and when to simply walk with your head held high, knowing you did the right thing. It was in not allowing them to make you a victim of your own kindness. It was in understanding that love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. And it was in knowing that it is never too late to defend what belongs to you, not out of greed, but out of dignity. I looked toward the house, the lights on in every window, women who had hit rock bottom and were now rising, women who, like me, had learned that giving up is not the only option. And I smiled, because this house, with its story of pain transformed into refuge, was my best revenge against those who thought they could break me. They did not break me. They strengthened me. And that was a victory much sweeter than anything else I could have imagined. Final reflection. Sometimes life puts us in situations where we have to choose between being kind or being strong. I learned that the most powerful women are those who know how to be both, but never at the cost of their own dignity. If my story touched your heart, if you have ever felt invisible in your own life, if you have sacrificed so much that you forgot that you also matter, then write in the comments where you are joining us from. Tell me your story, because we all have one, and we all deserve to be heard. Like if you believe that respect is earned, not begged for. And subscribe to continue sharing stories of women who refuse to be erased from their own lives. Because in the end, the true inheritance is not houses or money. It is the dignity with which we face storms, and that no one can take away from you. The end.